Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Yo on the Go Leadership Moments, where we look to upgrade all the vehicles in life. Today, my special guest is Mary Ann Hellrigel. She is an archivist, the institutional historian and archivist for the IEEE, and she is an expert in Edison and in his leadership experience and how that has shaped America and consequently the world. I'm super excited to have you, Mary Ann, on this
Thank you.
program. I really think that history is an extremely important aspect of the experience of a leader. Not only to know, typically leaders are having big visions, looking at the future, but in order to get to the future, you need to know your past. You need to know where you've come from. You need to know where the society has come from
Exactly.
in order to know where it's going. So I'm really interested in hearing your experience and also your expertise on Edison, and particularly his leadership role in informing all of these amazing organizations and technologies. So I understand that Edison was one of the founding members of IEEE. Can you describe how that came about and
Okay.
how that affected?
Okay. The IEEE traces its roots back to the AIEE, which is the American Institute of Electrical Engineers, which was founded in 1884. It is an offshoot of Civil Engineering Society. They found that these new types of engineers focusing on not just generators and such, but electrical technology and power plants. They found they weren't getting enough time at the conferences and such. So in 1884, May of 84, they announced that they were going to found this new organization based in New York. The AIEE, founded in May of 84, has its first technical meeting in October of 1884 at the in Philadelphia. And Edison was one of the founders of about a dozen, I want to say 14 people, but a dozen or so people, and he was one of the first vice presidents. Um, and so he's signed a letter to announce they were going to form this. And at the point, he's one of the most well-known electrical engineers in the world. By 1884, he was a millionaire. He had made money manufacturing parts for telegraph, telephone, but most importantly for electric lighting. And by 1884, he was also known as the inventor of research laboratories. So he's been a leader in workshops that made parts for
Hmm.
telegraph equipment, stock tickers. But then he founds his own research laboratory in Menlo Park in 1876 because he wanted to get into the business of invention. So he goes down to New Jersey, is just along the railroad outside of Manhattan, and he hires a few dozen men. And then as the electric light research expands, 1878, 1879, he's going to have a staff of over 100 men, and they're going to be working on all the parts. So he, as a leader, had the vision, but he also acknowledged that he had a team. He had a solid team of people. He had a mathematician, he had a glass blower, he had people that were mechanical engineers, and he pulled them all together, and they together decided on who was going to work on which component. But he's the master, telling people, okay, you're going to work at the lamp shop, you're going to work at the machine shop, you're going to work at making dynamos and such. And so he managed it. He wasn't great at managing money, I would admit. um, he liked to make money, to spend money on invention. And so he had a secretary who kept track of his business correspondence and his accounts, which was very helpful for him. And he was the man that was the leader going out to shake the trees for money. So he was the person that would meet with the likes of J.P. Morgan and the Vanderbilts in New York City. And he's also the leader that would chat up the press, and he would bring them down to Menlo Park and wine them and dine them and show them his newest inventions. But he knew that he was part of a team. He had 1,093 patents awarded in the United States and many, many abroad. But he would be the first to admit that yes, they most of them are in his name, but he's part of a team, and he knew how to balance people. And he actually had a cohort of people that stayed with them for with him for much of their careers. So I think he was really good at picking out people that would have his back, and he would have their back. And I'm sure they didn't always get along, but they all balanced each other out, and that they could rely on him to help raise the funding, and that he could rely on them to oversee important projects and in the end, companies. So,
I really hear it sounds like he was a very prolific inventor, but also a team manager, worked as a team, and then went into the vertical portion of the market, not only just working on your light bulb, but looking at the powering devices surrounding that light bulb in order to make the best product and to really bring light in some ways to the
oh,
whole world, right? That greatly expanded the human consciousness in terms of the being able to be awake for extended periods of time and to be able to work. I think that innovation engine really kickstarted because of the amazing work that him and his team in their laboratories worked. It sounds like very exciting, and I'm kind of curious. In this particular thread, we had just talked right before this interview about, for me, commute life balance, how Yo Indigo started. I'm curious about his work life balance. You said he bought a few
uh,
mansions here and there. I'm kind of curious, what was his life, outside of work? What was it like?
well, his work-life balance, I would say, was a failure. His wives would say it was a failure. Um, uh, he at Menlo Park, when he had his lab and his house, just across the yard from each other, he would basically spend most of his time at the lab. His wife got a bit lonely there. His first wife, Mary, and he has three kids with her. Um, his second wife, Mina Miller, who he marries in 1885 after his first wife passed away, she came from the middling class, and she was raised to be the house manager, the mother manager, and the husband manager. So she would, in West Orange, send clean clothes, send food down to the
Hmm.
lab for him, remind him to come home. She would get him to take vacations now and then. But I guess if I would label him, I'd say he was a workaholic. And at times he would work himself to exhaustion. But he had a profound hearing problem, so social events were very problematic for him.
Hmm.
So he did go camping. If I would say what he liked to do was go on camping trips, and this would be in Florida or in Virginia, and his camping buddies included Henry Ford, Harvey
Hmm.
Firestone, um, Burroughs. He also went on camping trip with President Harding, and
Hmm.
sometimes they took the wives with them. But that would be it. He liked to fish. He liked to go camping. But camping, they had a big entourage. Excuse me. They'd have a cook and a whole bunch
Hmm.
of
Okay.
automobiles with all their things. But that would be his idea of relaxing. Sometimes he would go to Western New York. There was the Methodist retreat, Chautauqua, that his wife and her family were involved with, and he would go up there with her.
Hmm.
And he would have dinners at his home sometimes. He would rest up when he went to Florida to his house in Fort Myers, which is just a regular house, not a mansion of sorts. But he would go there and hang out with his children. He had
Hmm.
a pool built for them that was filled by an artesian well, so that was pretty cool.
Oh, very
And
interesting.
he liked fishing. The deal is at his house in Fort Myers, the river was pretty shallow, so he built a really long dock that went out into the river, and he let the
Hmm.
locals use it. And he would go
Wow.
fishing. But
Interesting.
you wouldn't really find him running around New York in a tux, going to openings or things like that.
Marianne, thank you so much for this retrospective on Edison and just the experiences of someone that you've studied for so many years. And you really have brought out a new understanding of who he was as a man and what he brings in his character to the future and for all of humanity. So thanks so much for your time. And I want to just encourage others to think about Edison and his history and what he is able to just come back and show to all of us, that this incredible man had a passion, but he also had a life and a balance that was somewhat afforded by his friends and by his relationships, by his team. Um,
And
I think as we all come together, looking forward to seeing you, Marianne, again at the
thank you.
IEEE Rising Stars Conference. I encourage all of the rising stars out there to contact her and to connect with her at this conference. The link will be below in the descriptions. Please click and register for this virtual global conference in January 2nd, 2021. I hope this was helpful for you. And thank you so
Thank you,
much,
sir.
Marianne. And we'll look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you for your time, Terrence. It was a pleasure.
Okay. It was a
Take
pleasure
care.
on my side too. Until next time, bye.
Be well. Bye bye.